Indra.
And I'm Amanda.
And we'd like to welcome you to The Messy Middle Matters. Hey, Amanda, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you, Indra?
I'm good. Today, we're going to get to talk about insiders and outsiders, which is a bit of a theme that's been showing up and creeping into some of our past episodes, but we're going to talk about it a little bit more deeply today. And I'm sure we'll talk about it across a number of episodes because there are so many facets to it. So before we jump into the conversation, let's make sure we clarify for everyone listening, what do we mean in this specific episode, in this specific context? What do we mean by insiders and outsiders? So insiders are the permanent employees of a particular organization. They have to abide by certain rules and regulations and cultural norms for that specific organization. These folks are more likely to be full-time employees. It might be, the people within your company, the people within your team, but that the word organization is a little flexible there, but they're people who are there all the time with you. And for this context, outsiders, we're saying, are the agencies, consultancies, and high-paid subject matter experts, also called SMEs, that organizations bring in for a specific purpose or a fixed period of time. And the last level setting before we jump into the topic is, I want to make sure that it's clear. Insiders are not better than outsiders. Outsiders are not better than insiders. They just have different strengths and opportunities to engage in conversations. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I've been lucky enough to be both an insider and an outsider. Now we are outsiders, which is kind of why we're able to do this podcast, which is kind of awesome. I don't think we could have ever done this at least I couldn't have done it if I was working for a company. I wouldn't be able to speak half as freely as I'm able to now, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it'd be a lot trickier to do this if we were insiders working full-time at a company.
Yeah, because I'm just imagining like they'd be afraid that are they going to talk about that meeting, or are they going to like, oh, that must have been that thing that person she's complaining about. They don't know that it's like 5 jobs ago. Right. There are patterns in the world. But yeah, because we're outsiders, we get to talk as freely as we'd like to.
Right, for sure, without as many consequences or repercussions from our employers, right?
Yeah.
Like you just said, tomorrow you're going to get called to the office and, reprimanded for saying that thing on the podcast about that meeting, which actually wasn't even about that meeting.
Wasn't about that meeting at all. So let's talk a little bit about, and also talk about like when organizations would bring in outsiders. Like I said, I've had the experience of being on both sides of this, and the reasons for bringing in outsiders, this particular flavor of outsiders can be due to bandwidth constraints, to fill a skills gap, or they need an objective party to take the lead on something. I think that's where we're going to probably lean in on this conversation. And the reason that I've been the outsider brought in or have asked for an outsider to come in has, we need our partners need a objective voice to hear the thing, right? And we might even need an objective voice to hear the thing just to validate or invalidate our understanding of the situation. And like we were just saying earlier, the outside voices can say the quiet thing out loud without getting as many repercussions. So we'll dig into that a little bit more.
Yes. And I think, the outsiders, the consultants, the subject matter experts bring this external credibility to the table.
Yeah.
Right. They're not as ingrained in the company's norms and processes and power dynamics and all of, how things are done at this company. They bring this external, like, here's what I've seen in the outside world, and here's what I've learned, and here's what I can bring to you.
Yeah, they have different skin in the game. Like different skin in the game. Like the performance of this project is not going to impact it. Well, it depends on how the contract is structured, but let's just for simplicity say the outsiders, whether they get paid or not, doesn't matter if the project succeeds or it doesn't. Like in many, many cases, that's the case. They're going to get paid no matter what. And when you're internal, you really do care about the follow through and things that are the end results, right? But the outsider is not completely like flip and carefree, right?
Right.
Because they want to stay in your good graces. They're intrinsically incentivized to do a good job so that everyone in your organization, you, the direct stakeholder, the person who literally signed the contract with that outsider, is satisfied with their work and brings you back in again for another project or another piece of time or whatever it might be. Or a partner might choose to bring you in. Like one of the other people within that organization said, oh, I like what they did over there. Indra did a kick-ass job on that one. Let me bring her in for this other thing. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Or, and not or, like give you like a good testimonial, right?
Yes.
Like on LinkedIn or your portfolio, if you're a consultant, like working for yourself. There are just so many incentives for the outsiders to do a good job.
Yep. Because word of mouth, this work world is so much smaller than anybody realizes it is. Even when we talk about like global communities, the number of times I've run into someone like, oh, like you again, cool. Didn't think I'd see you again. Let's also talk about, so we talked a fair bit about outsiders, but let's talk about insiders too, right? So, insiders, I think there are some, and some of the power dynamics or some of the elements or the aspects that we can talk through are there's a challenge for insiders to speak up, right? I think that's one of the challenges that insiders face that outsiders can help with, right? Because there's power dynamics in the organization. There's risk of like, they don't want to risk their bonus, let's say, or, the culture within the organization may not allow for the type of feedback that you would like to offer.
Right. There could be a lack of psychological safety, right? People, the insiders don't feel comfortable or safe to share their opinions or to speak up against, something, whatever it may be, right? A process going wrong, a leadership not like being aligned and just being a hot mess, whatever it may be, there just may not be that psychologically safe environment within the corporation. Related to that, I think there could be, historical baggage, right? Like there's always people may speak up and, do their best to push for change. And no matter how hard they push, no matter what they do, nothing changes. And so it becomes a learned behavior, like a learned silence.
It's a muscle memory you develop, kind of.
Yeah. Something else that came up, right? Like it just popped into my head. There might be emotional labor or like fatigue related to that, right? Like I've got so much going on, like project wise, people management wise, all of the things. And it's just like speaking up and trying to push for change. It's just one more thing to add to my plate. And like, I just can't, I need, going back to, one of the reasons you bring in an outsider, resource constraints.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've seen when outsiders do get brought in, and it's often enough for resource constraints, like as a leader bringing in an outside voice, you do want to make sure that the work is within the wheelhouse of the outsider that's coming in and doing the thing. So you need to craft their scope, the sphere of their work to align to their strengths so that they can succeed, so that you and your team can inevitably succeed due to that. It's a cascading set of successes. But what can happen is that your internal team starts to get a little resentful. Right.
Mm-hmm.
They see, oh my gosh, they're bringing in outsiders. The things that I've seen that show up, like the alarm bells that show up for some people can be, oh my gosh, they don't think I have the skills. Oh my gosh, is my job at risk? Oh my gosh, like all the different things that can show up.
Like, oh my gosh, like who does Amanda think she is? Like coming into that meeting, like saying those things, right? Like that can breed resentment.
Right. Or Amanda said the thing and they listened to her and they didn't listen to me. Like, what's that all about?
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's just, people are funny. People are funny. I had a yoga teacher years ago who taught me that, the eyes that we look through, those are just cheap cameras. The ears that we listen with are just cheap microphones. And, like our brains are cheap computer processing devices. And, the reason I love thinking about that metaphor is that when your ears can only pick up certain things, maybe it needs to be said in a different tone or a different tenor, and suddenly it penetrates. And you're like, or it might have been just that the timing was different and that stakeholder, your partner in the organization, could actually finally hear. So, I think that making sure, if you are the leader or if you are a leader within the team, when a partner is being brought in, when an outsider is being brought in, making sure that you are very aware of the anxiety that will kick up. Not if it's a when.
It's a when.
When and a how. You're aware of it. You're tuned to it. You have people watching out for it, and you're mitigating that risk along the way and giving all the appropriate reassurances.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, I'm just thinking of, so my experience is mostly as an insider. I know you have experience equally on both
it's something
sides.
Like that. I don't know.
Something
if
like
it's
that.
40,
Yeah.
I got something. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah. And I just, as you were going through, the types of resentment and like how that can show up when you bring in an outsider. I'm thinking of all the times I've seen an outsider come in, like as an insider myself. And I'm just like, yeah, the piece that resonated for me was wait, I've been saying this for so long. And this person comes in and they say exactly what I've been saying. And all of a sudden, wow, so-and-so, like, great idea. Let's go implement that.
Yeah, it is frustrating. It is frustrating. And so, like, the behavior that I've encouraged is in my team, when that's happened, or if I'm the partner, like, hey, use that outsider. What do you want to have said? What are you trying to advance? And, a good outsider won't necessarily be like this just instant microphone that just parrots everything that other people say. But, they will take it in and they will insert it where needed, where it can advance the larger strategy for the greater good. So know how to partner with them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think you hit it, right? Like, learn how to leverage that outsider's voice.
And you don't know how it's so funny. Some of my best like professional friendships have come from partnerships with outsiders on both sides. And as I'm sitting here thinking back, like a lot of them are actually from the other side. So like you can forge those friendships and those long relationships. And why that's so useful is that you're able to tap into each other throughout the course of your career as things advance in one way or another. And, it's, maybe at some point you want to explore going to the other side. I put that in air quotes, and shifting to a different landscape and going from the inside to the outside or the outside to the inside. You have somebody you can talk to and be like, hey, what's it like? Tell me more about it. I know what it's like to work with you guys, but what is it like on the inside? So that's a really nice way to leverage that to a little bonus something.
Right. Yeah. And not just, external to work, not just on a friendship level, but just learn how to work with each other and collaborate on whatever project engagement that this outsider is on. And like join forces for the greater good, as corny as that sounds.
No, but I think that's it. I mean, I think that so many of our episodes have this like community oriented something, because you and I both believe that the human beings we work with are humans, and we do form communities around projects, around teams, around organizations. And I'll say one of my proudest professional experiences. So I was in-house, and I was working with an incredible agency. It was called Moment Design. They've since been acquired by Verizon. They were really good, really good. And one of the things that we worked on is, so my partner, Alexa Curtis, amazing human being and leader. She was really good at conceptualizing certain types of tools and novel ways of approaching design projects and research projects and what it might be. And so one of the tools used in the UX world, user experience world, is called a persona. It's an archetype of a human being, right? And it's used to ground the work that you do and make sure that you're always designing with a particular person in mind, and you're not designing just for yourself, or you're not building the app just for yourself. And so she had this concept that she tried out with other clients before, of creating these cards that would allow you to assemble an entire persona based on a set of attributes. And so she's like, hey, do you think we could do that here? I'm like, hey, I think that would be really awesome. And so she and her team designed a beautiful set of cards. I actually should post some pics online. Maybe I'll do that at some point in time, of our deck of cards. But where my part came in and what made this partnership so strong, and this implementation of this approach so much stronger than anything she'd done in the past, was we had a deep, long relationship. I was able to do a few things. I was able to do the stakeholder management within the organization and roll out the cards to not just the design team, but to partners all across the country, and do a little bit of a roadshow. That was one piece of it. But the other piece, which was even richer, was I was able to access the data of our clients and understand which attributes get paired in which sorts of ways. So people, when they were assembling these cards, would know which pairings were the most likely scenarios. And, that to me is, not only was it just such a impactful project that people still randomly message me about on LinkedIn, like, oh my gosh, I was using the cards, or, oh my gosh, I was thinking about the cards. My new place could totally use them. So like, not only do I get that, but like, and the value of the product, but it was just like such a beautiful partnership. Like, and it's just, it was, and that's what I think, that's not that exact project, of course, but that's the kind of relationship that's like the pinnacle of insider outsider partnership.
Yeah, that's such a great story.
It's a long story. Sorry about that.
No, it's a great one. Because like it tells the story of the partnership and like what was important from each side, right? Yeah. Like you had the access to the data and like the internal proprietary information, right? And you also had the access to the network, the stakeholder management. You had built these relationships with people internally that Alexa did not have.
Because she couldn't. Yeah.
Right. Because she was able to leverage those things that you had to offer. And you were able to leverage her expertise, her experience, like rolling out these cards before, her ability to say the quiet things out loud. And like you each brought these different like skills and things to the table that made this partnership work. And it led to a successful rollout of a thing that it's awesome that people still message you about that.
They do. And I want to give credit to the rest of the team. And I'm not going to remember everybody's names, but Cassie was on it and Sean was on it. And like, there was a lot of like, Alexa had her own awesome team on the other side. So, but yeah. So
yeah, and she, that's another thing, right? Like she has access to a network and a set of experts on her side too, right? If there was something that came up that she herself didn't, wasn't the most well versed in, or didn't have the most expertise, she could tap into her network and her team on her side to find someone who did have the answer.
100%. And what's beautiful about working with, and I'll just focus in on them specifically, like they had a lot of clients across, and they had all the right propriety. Like they never disclose anything that they shouldn't have, just to be abundantly clear. But, they could tell us about trends, right? Because they had clients in like a major client, which was they had a major client, which was ESPN. They had a lot of clients in the healthcare sector. They had a lot of clients in the financial services sector, and they could really, so the various teams that they had on that agency side, they could learn from the different industries and see where the trends were. Shockingly, there's a fun fact. There is a commonality between fantasy football or fantasy sports and financial services trading systems. right?
That
Like, and they
doesn't
could
surprise
see,
me at all, actually.
right? Like, but who would have thought of it if I hadn't said it out loud, right? So they're like, oh, those two things are equally complex. So anytime somebody's like trying to create something, it's like, oh, it's like kind of like fantasy football. I'm like, it's as complex as financial services trading. They're like, I'm not trying to burst your bubble. I just want you to know what you're charging a mountain. I want you to know how tall that mountain is.
Right.
But I know that because of them, because they're like, oh, and that was just, without having to disclose anything. They're like, oh, that's a complexity. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So then whenever we were recruiting more talent for in-house, we were like, oh, people who have experience with that could be a really good fit for us. And we would have never thought about tapping into that particular market of talent.
Yeah, it just opens up a world that you can connect more dots.
100%. 100%. So I think covered a lot of good ground. And I think, anything else that you wanted to touch on, or Amanda, to bring into this conversation?
No, I think, I think we really nailed it where we focused on the partnership between the insiders and the outsiders, right? And like, what things does each party bring to this engagement, and how can we leverage each other to ensure success in the thing? We'll call it the thing.
100%. We're not adversaries. We need to figure out how can we play the game from different positions on the field. I love a good sports ball metaphor. From different parts of the field, but how can we play the game to our collective advantage, right? And I say, yeah. So I hope everyone got something really good out of it. And I'm glad we got to dig into this one. I'm glad that we got to dig in this one. And I hope that everyone listening got something good out of it too. And that you'll join us next time for when we discuss another topic from the messy middle. Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.